Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFT Statistics with your proof daily NFT countdown. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why are you wearing a color shirt? You never wear a color shirt for the show. And the reason is I went to my son's version of Hamlet today at his school. It was fun. Also, I'm a little bit late, but let's go. Let's talk about NFTs. Quick market overview. Going to talk about a new mint coming up. We're going to talk about these ordinals that Yuga announced and a bunch of big sales. Let's get right to it. Volume was kind of in this lower range versus where we were a few days ago. Still very elevated relative to before season 2 of Blur airdrop farming. Market share still heavily in favor of Blur. Something like 75-80% of the ETH volume is on Blur right now. I wanted to look at royalties per day, just a different chart. You can see about more than half of the royalties are on Blur, and that's just because so much more volume is there. Every single trade has half of 1%. Kind of in the middle of the range relative to where we were. So much lower royalty rate offset by all the airdrop farming, leading to more volume. In terms of where are most of the royalties being paid, you can see that more than half of the royalties right now are on Blur. This is over the past 7 days. And again, that's just because that's where all the volume is. And right now they're both kind of at that half of 1% minimum rate. One thing I wanted to kind of retouch on, because yesterday I showed this chart, and this chart is completely wild to me. What this chart looks at is the P&L, the profit and loss of Machi Big Brother, who is the biggest airdrop farmer in the game since season 2 started. You can see that his P&L from airdrop farming, the trades, he's down about 2,200 ETH. You know, that is more than double as much as he made in ETH in the entire season 1 airdrop. So a few people asked me, like, is everybody down? Is this a profitable strategy overall? And what I did was I looked at all the other airdrop farmers who've made the most points basically over the past couple weeks. And what you can see is pretty much everybody is in fact down. Okay, so none of the airdrop farmers are making money on their trading. There are a couple accounts, if you look at the two on the far left, that are up, but they've lost whatever they're up in trading. They're down because of royalties and gas fees that they've paid. So net, this strategy has not been making people money, but Machi Big Brother really kind of in a league of his own in terms of where the losses are. Obvious question, why are people doing it? And the answer, I think, is pretty clear. It's that Blur is distributing 800 to 850 ETH per day in Blur tokens, assuming that the token stays where it is, which is around 80 cents right now. So that more than offsets, even if you're just getting some of that, more than offsets the losses that the majority of people are receiving. But I thought that was kind of interesting to dig in and see that really pretty much all the top earners are down right now in terms of the P&L trading on Blur for the airdrop farming. In terms of what happened yesterday with prices, large cap index pretty flat, Doodle's up about 5%. We'll talk about that in a minute. Moonbird's down about 5%. Mid cap index flat as well. Saw some strengths in captains, which just keeps on going. Deadfellas up a little bit. I don't read too much into these percentages because when you're on like a 1 ETH or lower floor price, some of these moves don't make that big of a difference. Kid Called Beast giving back some of the gains that it's had over the past couple weeks. Art collection's very, very slow. I've circled the only 3 here that did more than 10 ETH of volume, so really not a lot of action in the art space. One project that did have a bit of news was Doodles. Doodles Genesis boxes, you can see here, kind of ripped a little bit higher, but gave back some of the gains, but still a little bit of a move there. Doodles came out with a thread, and in that thread they said, we know that people are frustrated we don't communicate. Well, here we are communicating. And one of the things they said is that every Genesis box will have something rare or a grail and a beta pass. So there's a lot there. I'm sitting here thinking like 20,000 NFTs. How can every single one be rare? How can every single one be grail? If everything's rare, is anything rare at all? Who knows? We'll see what happens. But nice to see Doodles out there talking to the community and saying a little bit more about what these Genesis boxes are going to do. One thing they also said is that they're not dropping a roadmap, but they are dropping a doodle map. And they're here to ship products. They're not here to ship promises, turn on notifications. We are going to be getting that doodle map later this week. So curious to see what happens. Always good to get a bit more communication when teams want to give it. Second story to talk about, Yuga announces an ordinal drop. Very interesting, kind of unique story here. This is one of the few glimpses we get of the art. You can see at the top of that image, the project is called 12-fold. And Yuga basically said this is a limited edition, 300-piece generative art project, which is going to be inscribed as Bitcoin ordinals. This is the one piece that we did see. Pretty cool art. I really kind of like it myself. Kind of going over the details of the thread. There'll be 300 pieces. They said there will be no utility. It will not be connected to Bored Ape Yacht Club. Nothing to do with those projects. Don't expect more. I keep thinking the guys at Yuga must love saying this, in a world where you're constantly needing to come up with utility for your PFP to just say the art is the art, take it or leave it. That's what they're doing here. The designers, the artists were the in-house team by Yuga Labs. The team is over 100 people. They have some great artists and designers there. They're the ones who made it. All the pieces will be sold in an auction later this week. So really curious to see how this plays out. My take here, I just think Yuga, when they bought Punks, they want to be in the art game. They want to be in just the NFT game as a whole. And here's a way where they're being innovative, doing something different. People didn't expect it. I think it's pretty cool. Pumped to see how that auction plays out. Expect those prices to be pretty punchy. Figured I'd give you guys a quick review of what's happened with Ordinal Punks. This chart here looks at every single day, how many trades there were per day and what the prices were in Bitcoin terms for Ordinal Punks. We're probably looking at the same thing here, this big gap. There have been basically no trades since February 19th. So after a pretty big run, there's been a little bit of a break in sales. You can still see this basically looks at every single sale and then the price in Bitcoin terms. You can see prices have been trending up, but recently kind of tapered off a little bit with a little bit less action in the Ordinal Punk game. This looks at how many ordinals there are out there. Left column here is total outstanding. There are already over 200,000. We had a big rip in the beginning, kind of calmed down, and we've recently had a rise in the number of inscriptions that happen. Third story to talk about, Momoguro launch on Thursday. They announced the details. This is a new mint. I didn't know a lot about it. I had to learn about it this morning, but learn about it I did. It's kind of like a cartoon, really interesting animated world that they are creating. Here are the details that they have on the mint. I'll talk a little bit later about why this is kind of interesting. 8,888 supply. The mint date will be Thursday, March 2nd. Price is 0.22 ETH, which means the raise will be $3.2 million based on current ETH prices. In terms of digging into what makes this interesting, there's certain aspects of the project where you combine multiple characters into a new character. That's a theme that comes up a little bit on their website. They also talk kind of a little bit about a roadmap, but the roadmap feels pretty generic for what we see with new projects, digital collectibles, Web3 platforms, collectible game. This feels it kind of feels like the old days of like new PFP projects, new art projects coming out. It has a little bit of that feel. What's interesting here is that it's being done by Baobab Studios, which is a studio that has done a whole lot of animated movies, a bunch of VR, a bunch of interesting things. This here is the team, and they have, according to the website, some of the investors in Baobab are Disney, Samsung, Liz Murdoch, Alibaba, Yoku. They have a whole list. But I think what you're getting here is a team that has real experience in the animation world, in the production world, in the storytelling, story building world. So I'm just excited to see what happens when that meets this NFT space. Curious to see this project. I imagine it'll be a very difficult allow list to get on, but curious to see this one play out. And then last thing to talk about is some notable sales. First, the Dookey Dash key sold for 1,000 ETH. I think we all saw it. Love to see it. Just a little bit of details on what got us here. First, UpDAO bid 690 ETH. Mongrel, the 18-year-old, one of the top gamers in the world who won the key, said double that and maybe I'll accept it. Then 9gag, Memeland bid 990 ETH. And then a couple hours later, we hear that it was sold for 1,000 ETH to Adam Weitzman. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is I know the guys at 9gag. I lived in Hong Kong. They're based there. I pinged Ray. I said, did you get a look on raising your price? And he didn't get a look. Who knows? I think 1,000 probably undersold this key because it's sold to 1,000. They never even went back to Memeland and said, hey, do you guys want more? So my sense here is that there was a deal not prearranged, but arranged before 9gag came in where they said they would sell it to Adam Weitzman. A bit of background on who this buyer is. I Googled him. He's an entrepreneur, incredibly successful. Love it when you Google someone and their Bored Ape is on the profile. But yeah, he had a bunch of businesses and I believe in recycling based in New York, but very successful person. Only owns a few NFTs, had a look at his vault, but what's in there tends to be grails, a bunch of blue bean apes. Congratulations to the buyer. Congratulations to Mongrel. Another really cool thing about this sale was I looked at this guy, OX Warning, on Twitter, someone I love to follow. He said that this sale was the third highest esports purse, $1.6 million ever given to an individual. So in terms of an individual prize for one person, this was the third highest, according to this tweet. I'm going to believe it. You can check them out. But I think it's pretty cool just to see all that happen there. Next sale to talk about, Complex One by Kjetil Golid, sold for 12.136 ETH. Really, Kjetil is just such a cool generative artist, plays with algorithms and colors so well. The way he described this piece with both the left and upper edge of the image has a repetitive pattern. The generation of each new cell is always based on the upper and left neighbor. And nevertheless, the pattern dissolves into chaos very quickly. Kind of interesting if you think about that and look at it. I don't fully get what it means. I'll be honest, a little bit confusing, but I kind of get an idea of how there is pattern and how eventually it just kind of goes into pretty serious chaos over time. For those who don't know, Kjetil Golid is the artist for Archetype, which is one of the absolute most successful art blocks projects of all time. 20.5 ETH floor, 600 pieces. I always find this super interesting. This piece sold for 12.136 ETH, and the floor price for his project is 20.5. I always find that interesting, that one-on-one versus collection dynamic. Collections get so many people out there promoting them and can kind of take on a life of their own, where one-of-ones sometimes actually sell a little bit lower. In terms of other one-of-ones that Kjetil has had, he's had a 30 ETH, 40 ETH, 39.9 ETH sale before. Really beautiful work. So this was a little bit on the low end for his one-of-ones, but still, 12 ETH sale in this market is nothing to be embarrassed about or sad about. Lower left is a piece he has not yet sold that's still in his wallet. Found that, thought that was kind of cool. Congrats to Kjetil as well as the buyer. And then the last piece to talk about is called Unbeliever by Batzdu. This was by Batzdu on Super Rare, 9.14 ETH. Now looking at the other pieces in this sale, this is called the 9 series. You can see that this was the highest sale amongst them. This is just a set of 4 pieces. So really cool to see this one trade at a higher valuation to the others. Now, I was thinking about Bats and Batzdu, and Jack Butcher actually talked about Bats when he came on the Proof podcast with me and said that Bats was a lot of his inspiration for the Opepin edition. Bats is also the artist of Pepidenza editions. Kind of really cool Fidenza-esque meets Pepe color type artwork. He also has some 101s where the floor price is 42.69. Obviously, who knows, that's just where the floor is. That's not where the trades are happening, but still clearly doing some cool stuff. And then I looked at Jack's timeline. He said, and he really called out here. He said, Matt Fury of Pepe's and Batzdu were my inspiration for Opepin edition. So cool to see this sale. Definitely an artist I want to start following a lot more closely. Really cool diversity of the work. So congrats to everyone involved there. That's all for me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. We will be back tomorrow and every weekday with another Proof Daily Countdown. Do like the video if you like it. Do subscribe to the channel. Tell us what you think, and we'll see you soon.